Hi everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and I am here to do a walkthrough slash review of the Sasuraibito. Bart told me how to say it correctly because I know that all of these letters should be said together. But this is one of those things. The community has started calling it the Sassy Burrito. That's the name that has stuck the most to it. I'm not sure if that's to the creator's chagrin or not. The creator is Stasha Burrington, and I tend to land with Sasuraibito, but I know that that's not exactly correct. I've had this for a little while. It came the same time, the same day actually, that the Moonchild Tarot came, and I've been really working with this one, so it just hadn't quite gotten its day yet. But I have pulled this out, and I've done some readings with it, both for myself and for clients. And because I was kind of curious about how I would feel about it. So this is not a first impressions. I have gone to cards several times. I have also used the cards multiple times, again, for myself as well as for clients. Because I had been, one of the reasons I ended up pulling the trigger on this one after quite some time, right? This is well past its initial excitement around the deck. It's because I've heard from a couple people that it reads really well for clients, and I've certainly found that to be true. So, so that's why I've had this for a little bit, and I'm just now, this is a little bit more of an actual review instead of a first impressions because I've used it. So the box is wonderful. This is the 3rd edition. And so we have beautiful box. It's got the nice little thumb cutouts, which I think are a necessity in this type of box. I have one box that does not have that, and it's actually a real pain in the butt because I keep my decks in their boxes for the most part, and so I'll take the cards out to do a reading and I'll close it up and set it aside. And on the ones that do not have that, when the box is empty, and you go to try to open it up without the thumb taps, it's almost impossible. AKA Moonchild, I'm talking to you. And so it actually is, it's not, I know that people are, oh, that's such a picky little thing, but it's actually a practical thing when you are kind of getting in and out of your boxes a lot. It does make a difference, especially if the box is empty and doesn't have the weight to start that slide. So this opens beautifully. I love it. It's got gorgeous, you know, just the detail on it is gorgeous. Inside we have printing 3, the Sasuraibito Tarot, Sasuraibitotarot.com. A lot of these death head moths on everything. We have the little guidebook here, which we'll look at. And then we have the death head moth in the bottom. So it's a beautiful box. It's just really gorgeous. Everything about it is beautifully done. This is a deck with gloss. It is a glossy cardstock. It's pretty glossy, but it doesn't glare as much as some other glossy decks. Like, I don't have a problem when it's on my table with my lights, which some decks I do have a problem with. So it's glossy, but it doesn't have a terrible glare to it. And I will say, in terms of shuffling, this deck shuffles amazing. It riffle shuffles like a dream, which isn't always the case with glossy laminates, because sometimes they're sticky. Sometimes when you go to shuffle them, you get chunks instead of this nice slide. But this deck riffle shuffles beautifully. I was actually quite surprised. It was enjoyable to shuffle it. It obviously has this beautiful gold gilding. It's quite that shiny gold gilding. Yes, I do riffle shuffle my gilded decks. Do what I say and not what I do, I guess. You will get, you know, with gilding, if you riffle shuffle, you will get your corners, will get some wear, and the sides will even get a little bit more wear than if you overhand shuffle. That's okay with me. A good gilded deck will just show some wear, but it won't destroy the gilding. So, for example, my Fountain Tarot, which has silver gilding on it, I have riffle shuffled the heck out of that, and it is beautiful. Yes, you can can tell that I've used it, but it is not in any way chewed up or destroyed. And I have a feeling this is going to be similar, just from what I've used it and how I've kind of looking at these corners. So really pleased for I do prefer matte, but for a glossy cardstock, I'm really impressed with this cardstock. So we have that. Here's the backings, which are gorgeous. They have the 2 Death Heads moss. You have some bones. You have either some flower petals or some nuts or seeds. I think they're flower petals. And you have the moon in the middle. It is reversible for those that is important. So we have that with the cards. We have a little guidebook. I do like this beginning. This 78 card deck is inspired loosely by the Rider-Waite deck, Contemporary Living in the Pacific Northwest, and Japanese and Buddhist ideas. I think that's a very good, succinct summary of this deck. It is modern in a sense, and I'm generally not a it's not that I'm not a fan of them, but I don't generally use modern image decks. And this is modern, but not in a way that it is disruptive to my senses, I guess. It is definitely, you can see the Rider-Waite influence for sure, but it is definitely loose, and I like some of the shifts there. And you can definitely see, I don't know a lot about Japanese in specific, but you can certainly see Buddhist ideals there. The Japanese word Sasuraibito most closely translates to wanderer. It's an older literary term that is falling out of use, meant to describe a person ever seeking, searching for a place of healing and refuge. This deck is designed to accompany the curious, wandering querent. I think this little blurb here is just a fantastic and very accurate description of this deck. So I do like that. So, you know, she just gives a little bit into the method, you know, kind of leaving that to, there's not a right or wrong way to do things. Then she goes pretty quickly into the cards. I do like some of her keywords. They're a little bit different than what you sometimes see. The jester, the madman, the beggar, and then the Sasuraibito or the wanderer for the first one. So let's just take a quick peek here. The fool is at the beginning of our journey. While we'll commonly see being/acting a fool as a bad thing, in this sense, that is not so. The fool has a beginner's mind, has no strings attached, and is free of fear and preconception. He is the wanderer, childlike and innocent, able to take risks and be spontaneous. The fool can represent a fresh start, a new path, or beginning and great potential. He is the spirit in search of experience, open and unaware of his own supposed limitations. And in this case, I love the fact that there is this old man in this fool, because you do get that sense that the fool energy isn't about being a child. It's about having that innocence, wonder, that is beautiful. Like when you see, you know, the Dalai Lama or somebody of that nature that has that age and that wisdom, but at the same time you see this childlike beauty and innocence that can sometimes come, and I think that that really represents that. So one of the things that I will say that I like about this is that I do feel that the keywords as well as bring something a little bit new, which I like. I also like that sometimes it does refer to the image. I'm trying to get an example. Rain Souls of 7. It's not, it doesn't always directly describe it, but there have been times when I've looked something up because I was like, okay, where's she going with that? And it makes sense after reading the guidebook. So you don't get a lot, but I do think it's worth taking a peek, especially in the major arcana, just because I quite like some of her keywords, like for the High Priestess, referring to Artemis and Persephone and Isis. I know her as the witch. So that kind of thing, I think the Empress she has with Demeter and Freya. So I think that taking a peek at the keywords, especially in the major arcana, is well worth it in this particular deck. So not an extensive little white book by any means, but I do think useful, and it adds something. It's not just an afterthought. So let's go ahead and zoom in here so we can see these beautiful cards. So you can see they have a black border around them. We have the band that is the same all the way through. The only difference is that the number on the majors are not on the minors because it says in the title the number. So there's no numbering on the minors. So here we have the Fool, which we of course have talked about. Here we have the Magician. Maybe I'll take these out here. The Magus and the Juggler. One of the things that I like is she's got an interesting, her art style is a beautiful kind of illustrative style, a little bit of an anime feel to the style. But she does fun things that depict movement in many of the cards, such as this. You can kind of see his hands are juggling, and you've got another hand doing this, and you've got another hand with the cups over here doing this, and so you do get a sense of just movement and intention and focus that is pretty powerful. And even you do get a sense, you've got the cups, right? You've got the wands here, you've got the balls that you could think of as the pentacles being juggled. And then I like just the way his head and his intense focus is, which to me speaks of the swords intellect idea. So then we have the beautiful High Priestess. The High Priestess is the archetype of the feminine divine. She has sound judgment and common sense and is in tune with personal truth, serene and introspective. I think that's beautiful. And I do love that last line here. I know her as the Witch with a capital W. Then we have the Empress here, connected with Demeter and Freya, which certainly makes sense. They do give, she does give reversed meanings, and then she gives a quote. Now, I'm a huge fan of decks with quotes. So for example, let's go back here for a minute, for the High Priestess, a witch ought never be frightened in the darkest forest, because she should be sure in her soul that the most terrifying thing in that forest is her. That's from Terry Pratchett. That's amazing, right? So I do also appreciate in decks when they have quotes and things like that. That makes me quite happy. Take your pleasure seriously, Charles Ernst. I love this Emperor. There is a strength, yet very modern feel to it, but there is definitely a power feel to that almost a uniform of the suit, right? Would I rather be feared or loved? Easy, both. I want people to be afraid of how much they love me. Michael Scott from The Office. I love that. The Hierophant she has as the High Priest, the Pope, and the Shaman. It's a beautiful image. Because you get the hand signal of the High Priest, right? But you have the four-pointed, or the equal-pointed cross of the four elements. You have the beads here. So you do get a mixed, beautiful mixed feeling of not just Orthodox religion, but it's just a beautiful compromise, I think, that shows both the traditions that can be almost to a fault, but also the power of this card. Again, with the Lovers, I really love, they have this as, she's got this, just the keyword Gemini, but what I like here is the movement that you feel here. The energy, this isn't a static thing, it's an ever-moving, ever-evolving connection, which I think is really beautiful. Chariot as the warrior, that's her keyword for Chariot. There is this never half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing. Ron Swanson. I mean, you need to take the time to read the keywords in the majors and read the quotes, because they are fun. My birth card is a Chariot. I feel like this is a very powerful representation. You have a war horse here. Very sweet and tender strength card here, which I think is beautiful. I love this Hermit. She's got the keyword of the homebody and the seeker. That's so interesting. Let's read this. The Hermit is on a personal truth-seeking quest. She spends time alone, soul-searching, and turning inward to find deeper understanding. She is a shamanistic hero, finding answers in silence. Embrace reflection, solitude, and introspection. Maybe turn off your internet for a day or forever. Haha, just kidding. The Hermit withdraws from society to better know herself. She then must return from isolation to share her newfound knowledge. The Hermit is often shown with a walking stick, lifting a lantern to find the way. My Hermit is a lone hiker, probably somewhere in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. Reverse, there is a danger of tipping over into prolonged isolation, paranoia, loneliness, and losing grip on reality. And then the quote is, the quieter you become, the more you can hear. Ram Dass. So I just think it's beautiful. Wheel of Fortune. The card of destiny, change, these types of things. The wheel is often marked with the letters R-O-T-A-T-A-R-O, which stand for the elements earth, air, fire, and matter. I like the quote for this one too. See it for what it is, not for what you want it to be. Sonia Tekle, something like that. Justice is one of the cards that made me want to buy this deck. There are a couple of them, but this is one of them. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. She has it associated with Athena. The Hanged Man. Just like, okay, it's a good Hanged Man. Just love this Death card. The card of letting go. Be like a tree and let the dead leaves drop by Rumi. And then she also has another quote. I know this transformation is painful, but you're not falling apart. You're just falling into something different with a new capacity to be beautiful, by William Hannon. Temperance. This card commonly shows a hermaphroditic angel showing a balance between genders and pouring liquid from one vessel into another. Sometimes wine, sometimes cold water into hot. This is a blending synthesis of opposites. I like the feathered tattoos on this one. The Devil is one of the cards that I really liked in this deck. Now, I know that the point of this is this idea of seduction and desire and these kinds of things. But for me, what I really like about this card is that it is, to me, somebody standing and looking in the mirror. Instead of saying the devil made me do it and abdicating responsibility for choices, it's just kind of looking in the mirror and owning your own responsibility in where you're at that may not be such a great place. Love the Tower card here. This I love Tower cards with trees. The Druidcraft, I think, was one of the first ones that I had purchased that had that, and I really love it. In fact, it talks about the fact that in the Druidcraft that when lightning strikes, the area around it actually has a period of growth. The ions or whatever happens in the air induces growth. So yes, it's catastrophic, but then it also has benefits to it, which I think is very true of the Tower. Let's see the quote here. For a seed to achieve its greatest expression, it must become completely undone. The shell cracks, its insides come out, and everything changes. To someone who doesn't understand growth, it would look like complete destruction. Cynthia Ocelli. That's beautiful. Here's the Star card. She keys this as the astronomer, the navigator, the explorer. This Moon card, you know, since I started working with this deck, this Moon card just really speaks to me. I think it's just, You don't often see the moon with tears. There, I do have a couple decks like that. I have one that's beautiful. I can't remember which one it is. That you can see the one face in the moon, and then reflected in the water, you see another weeping face, which I think is beautiful as well. But there's just something very human and very vulnerable and very powerful about this expression of the moon. You are the sky. Everything else is just the weather, says Pema Chodron, which is one of the people I learned many, many things from. Here we have the sun. I like this because it's almost being, he does look as if he's being blinded. And this is her quote. Life is so damn short. For fuck's sake, just do what makes you happy. Bill Murray. I love her quotes here. They just go from the profound to the profoundly funny, right? Judgment card. We have the sense of, she talks about this. I chose to paint a woman emerging from a pile of blankets like an insect out of cocoon. She is a master and judge of her own transformation. And then we have the lovely World card, which is fulfillment and successful completion, which is beautiful. She uses as the quote, "You are the universe expressing itself as a human for a little while." Eckhart Tolle. So that is the major arcana. Again, I think it's absolutely beautiful. If you own this deck and haven't looked at your guidebook, I do always look at the guidebook once, but I think that this is one to kind of refer back to for those quotes, and again to see her, how she refers to, or the keywords, the subtitles basically that she uses for them, I think are really telling and bring a beautiful layer to this deck that I think shouldn't be missed personally. So then that brings us to the minors. Now, the one thing that's interesting is that when I first started going through the wands, I thought it was going to be almost like a pip-like, sort of an illustrated, they're all illustrated, sort of a scenic pip deck. But then the rest of the deck, the rest of the minors don't really play out that way, but it doesn't feel jarring. So here we have the ace. I love it with the labyrinth there. Let's see, I'm sure I don't have these in the right, same order that she does. So she has similar, for the minor arcana, she has the a paragraph or so of the card, and then she does give a reverse meaning, and she does give keywords to the cards. So you have the ace. You have the 2, which is gorgeous. She said, in the background, I have a Vegvisser. I'm sure I'm slaughtering that. I've seen this on many things. I've seen them in tattoos. I've seen them, but it is an Icelandic protective and guiding symbol. So again, when it does veer away where you may not be like, you may be like, I'm not really sure what that is, she does give you that information, even though this is quite a small little white book. So I appreciate that. Here we have the 3 of Wands, which I love. The 4 of Wands, this is beautiful. This came up in a couple readings for me. 5 of Wands, but you can see that it's very pip-like. We haven't seen a single person, and I was kind of getting excited. I was like, okay, is this going to be the whole deck? It's not, but again, it doesn't feel jarring to me, at least in the use of them. The 7 of Wands, I love this kind of holding ground. I like the random little spider here as well. 8 of Wands. Then you can see the Rider-Waite influence here. In the 9 of Wands. Now this is an interesting one. Let's just see. Persistent stamina and holding fast. You may have been through some shit and are a little beaten up, but stay strong, be resilient, and breathe. You are almost to a place of respite. So typical meaning here, but I like that the wand is sort of splinting the bone, right? So you have, you often see injury. Somebody's got a bandage wrapped around it, but here we can see the bone has broken, but the wand is being used to support that so that it can get all the way through the way they need to. Here we have the 10 of Wands. You get the sense of burdens here. It's really beautiful. And then we get to the court cards, in which we tend to have a young page. So here we have the young page of wands. We have a younger, but a little bit older, usually I think they're all male. I'm going to set them aside so I can look at that. Knight of wands. We do have the helmet to remind us, even though this is a modern deck with a guy in a t-shirt, this is a knight. I love the queens in this deck. Queen of wands. And then the King of Wands. I love the kings as well, except for there's one king that I feel like doesn't really mesh with the rest. Love this Ace of Swords. It's literally cutting through the darkness. That mind and that intellect and using your brain will cut through the brain fog. Love this Two of Swords. So again, you see now the Wands was an entirely... other than the very last one, was entirely more of a pip style with, you know, with lots of things going on there, not just straight pip, and except for the very last one. But then when we go into the aces, it's more of a typical deck with people and scenes going on. But she is so strong looking. I just absolutely love this Two of Swords. This feels as if she has come to a decision and she has just clashed her swords together and she's about to head forward. I really love that card. A typical Rider-Waite-Smith style, Three of Swords, with the painful experiences leading to the growth of the mind. Again, you know me, you know the drill. I do think the Three of Swords is about growth of the mind that can come from a variety of different experiences, not just painful ones, but it's beautiful. I love the Four of Swords. One of my favorite symbologies for the Four of Swords is sort of a meditative energy, and this is perfect. Very interesting Five of Swords. I meant to look this up when I was looking at it the other night. Let's just see. Five of Swords. Self-preservation and self-interest. Looking out for yourself, taking up arms, standing up for your personal needs, seeing the world in a me versus the other way. The tiny swords attached to the fingers here show that your actions have consequences, and by asserting your wants, needs, viewpoint, others may be hurt. Sometimes this fear will keep you from sticking up for yourself, in which case pain is still being dealt just to you. This is not fair either. Use your personal power to stand up for yourself, your loved ones, and your beliefs while being mindful of the possible pain that you can inflict. I love that because it's that idea of victory or success at what cost, and being aware of your cost. You may sometimes choose that cost is worth it, but sometimes it's not. And so being mindful of it and using it in a way that is well thought out is important. So I really like that. Love this Six of Swords. Love the Six of Swords. This to me is about surfacing, right? You've been in some difficult situation and you're kind of coming up for breath. I think it's beautiful. Seven of Swords, you have your typical Rider-Waite-Smith, this idea of somebody looks like they're up to something, but you don't exactly know what. This talks a little bit more about, adds in a layer of independence, which I don't often see, which I think is really neat, right? She's trying to do it all herself, and perhaps she can't, right? Perhaps she needs to have help. But it also, for me, I've come to terms with the Seven of Swords Rider-Waite-Smith version, this idea that we don't know the full story. We don't know exactly what's going on here, and we need to dig a little deeper. Here we have the Eight of Swords, which I really like with the, going back to the Ace of Swords. Really, they're being hemmed in, right, by their own brain fog. But it takes that same sword, that sharp intellect, to start to push that back and to cut it back. You need to reverse those swords and push that back. But it really highlights the fact that this is something to do with the mind, it's not a physical bondage. I also really like this Nine of Swords because, yes, she doesn't look like she's having a nightmare. She looks like she's overwhelmed by mental energy, which is very often for me what the nine. It's just a lot of mental energy, and you can use that to your good, but it can also be very overwhelming, and so needing to kind of rein it in a little bit. I think that's really nice. Ten of Swords, again, fairly typical, but we don't have blood everywhere. I was talking to Larissa earlier about this, and we both came to the conclusion that this deck, it has a bit of a gentleness to it, a bit of a, you know, we don't have blood everywhere here, which I appreciate. I also like the white swords because they look like they're not physical objects, right? This isn't about somebody laying dead in the ground here with blood everywhere. This is all of the things that they have learned over the course of 0 to 10 have become part of them, and some that's depleting, and some it's learning experiences. There's a lot. This to me is easier to work with with the way that I see the Ten of Swords. Love this page. She reminds me of the girl in Brave. So far the girls pages are female. I do really love this Knight of Swords as well. This, I think, it could be any gender. You don't really get a sense of, which you really don't in all of them, not too much on the chest aspect of these. I think this could go either way. It seems female to me, but I don't think that that's has to stay that way. So I love that. I love this Queen of Swords. This one makes me smile. I feel like artistically it's a little bit different. Just in the face, but I don't think it is when I look. It's a little bit more simple in the face than some, but then you look at this face and it's not very, it's very simple too, whereas this is a little bit more to the line drawing. But what makes me smile about this is that it looks like Link from Zelda, and it makes me think of my son. That brings us to the cups. Love this Two of Cups. I love the joined fingers. I like the little small black tattoos on a lot of the figures because obviously I have a few of those, so I enjoy that. I really love this Three of Cups. Of course, we have the two of Hearts here. Do we have a single heart here? No. Kind of hearkening back to the playing card suit. There's a heart on each one of them. I just like this. I don't think, some of them go a little bit far. Some decks, in my opinion, go a little bit far with the celebrating women that just, you know, are drinking and just kind of going overboard in celebration sometimes, where I think this is a different take on that I think is really supportive and beautiful. I love this. It does have that sense that she's kind of turning away from taking those cups, but she could also be not in a place where she needs to reach for cups because she is in a calm space emotionally, which is the Four of Cups for me is stability, stable emotions. Five of Cups. Certainly get that sense of sorrow, but we still have the two full cups. Love the Six of Cups. I had this come up in a couple. Six of Cups is a card that I really love, and it comes up a lot because I think it's so difficult to. It's a simple card that is very powerful and actually very difficult to achieve, because there is that, the further we go into life, the more shields that we put up, the more we kind of lock down, and the less that we're often able to see the world through the eyes of a child. And so I think for me it's one of the recurrent themes that I think is so important. And so Six of Cups is a deceptively simple and sweet card, and it's actually very powerful, and I really love this depiction. I actually really like this one as well. You have the Seven of Cups, but I love that she's, for whatever reason, the fact that she's holding the two of the cups in her hands, I really like. I'm going to pull this up here. Wishful thinking. This woman in this card is confronted by many options, having difficulty making a decision. She's a little bit overwhelmed by it. Choose a direction, start taking steps. Yeah, I mean, it's a typical Seven of Cups, which makes sense. You've got the cloud. She's not really sure. She needs to reach for the right thing and move forward. But I like, for whatever reason I haven't put my finger on yet, I like the fact that she's holding two of the cups. This is another of the cards that made me want to purchase this deck. I love this Eight of Cups. She is starting fresh. She is going off. She's cutting off the old and just moving into this new experience. I think this is extremely powerful. Love this Nine of Cups. happiness, right? It's the wish fulfillment, but it starts from inside. And I really love this Ten of Cups. You have this sense of contentment and all being right with the world. The legs and around the campfire. It evokes a wonderful feeling with the Ten of Cups. Love this Page of Cups. Love that he's got a book in his cup in hand for the night. Love, love, love the Queen of Cups. I love that the bowl has the universe of the stars within it. And he is freaking adorable with his little, these are those like ceramic camping cups that you get if you've ever gone camping. They're light and metal, and I just love it. That brings us to the Ace of Pentacles. This is the only ace with, most of the aces are fairly traditional in the fact that, you know, you have sort of the single object that kind of reflects the suit. I'm trying to find the cups. You do have hands in the cups. This is the only one that actually has a person on it, which is kind of interesting. It's not my favorite of the aces. I mean, it's beautifully done, but it's not my favorite of the aces. But here we have I do love that the bees are here. Love this Two of Pentacles. You still get the sense of juggling, but at the same time, it kind of is reminiscent of the beauty of the Two of Pentacles in Pip deck. So I really love that. Love this Three of Pentacles. You need help to achieve your goals. Four of Pentacles, you know, I'm not a fan of the Rider-Waite-Smith Four of Pentacles. I don't think of it as greediness. I think of the Four of Pentacles as stable resources, and this is not a time to be putting your resources outward. This is a time to keep them within, or keep hold of them. And this does reflect that. He doesn't look overly greedy. He's just kind of hanging on to his resources, which can be time and energy and finances and these kinds of things. So I think this is really doable. I really love this Five of Pentacles. Five of Pentacles is a card that I do look at when I'm looking at decks or deciding on decks, because I actually really love the Rider-Waite-Smith depiction of the Five of Pentacles. But I see what I see in this, what I love in Five of Pentacle cards is that there be this understanding that there is somebody to help, right? So she is weak. She might need some food. It talks about her being weak and hungry and these kinds of things. We have a piece of wheat that is also a little bit weakened and bent over. They can help each other. She can water the wheat plant and the wheat plant can feed her, right? So there, even though this is a card that's difficult, there is a solution by interacting with the world and the people around you in order to improve the circumstances. So I really like that. This is another one that really made me want to get this deck, because it's the understanding that we are connected and that what we do for each other is not just doing for the other person, but it's doing for ourselves. And so there is this really clear depiction of the importance of an energy exchange. I just think it's gorgeous. Seven of Pentacles. Waiting for her fruit to bloom or to come into being. Love the Eight of Pentacles. Knowledge, having gained sort of, but I like it. A lot of times it's like a heavy working kind of thing, but I love this idea of kind of gaining mastery and gaining mastery over what it is that you're doing, but I love that he's sitting on a pile of books. Beautiful. You know, you have that gorgeous depiction of a woman with a hawk or some type of hunting bird on the shoulder. It's one of my favorites of the Rider-Waite-Smith cards as well, and so I love that. This is so interesting, right, for the Ten of Pentacles, because you can see the traditional sense of weight, right? So this one person is carrying all this weight. However, if you balance things correctly, this is something that is manageable and doable. So I really love this, because this isn't, it's everything that's in balance, and so everything, it works out and you get this success here because everybody's working together. So I love that. Page of Pentacles. So here we do have a male Page of Pentacles. We have another knight here working in the field, which I love. And then beautiful Queen of Pentacles. Her face is just gorgeous. And then this is the one King of one of the courts that it's not my favorite, just because it really stands out against the other three. He does look really solid. You've got the mountains there. You've got the sense of his pose is very solid of the Pentacles. So I totally get it. It doesn't not work as a King of Pentacles, but it just doesn't really artistically wise. I don't think it just goes with there's not a cohesiveness about these four. But, so, you know, again, little quibbles. The queens, I just absolutely love. I love all of the queens. Love the knights. I like that he kind of has a cockiness, like you think of fiery energy there. Inward here, that sense of comfort there. I think they do depict their things well. And then I like the youth of the pages. Again, oh, she could be a female. I say that that's a male, but not necessarily. She's got more of a V-neck like a female shirt. So she just has short hair. You could see that either way. And again, it doesn't really matter that pages are male or female, although I do like when you have... I am a person who enjoys the ideology of duality in masculine and feminine energy. And so I like when pages are female, knights are male, kings, queens, or whatever mix-up you want to do, but that you have sort of a balance. But when you have three of one and then something odd throws it off, you know. But this, again, I think that I am mistaken in that. That could be male or female. It's just really beautiful. I just really love this deck, far more than I thought. When I purchased this deck, finally, after all this time, I will say it was a little bit with that feeling of concession, like, fine, fine, fine. Everybody's telling me that I'm going to like this deck, and, you know, that it'd be great to use for clients. And so there was a little bit of that attitude of, okay, let's just check this out, right? And not that I like the artwork. I just, again, don't generally do a lot of work with more modern looking decks. And I just didn't know that I would use it for clients. And, you know, I don't know. It's just that kind of thing. So it's definitely slipped right into my heart for sure. Again, it riffle shuffles beautifully. Nothing is sticky about it. It doesn't bridge over well because of that slippiness, but it riffles beautifully. You get, let me do that again. Sometimes with laminate, glossy, you don't get a real good blend when you riffle, but you can see there, hopefully with the glare, you get a beautiful blend of the mixing of the cards. You don't get big chunks. So I'm really, really happy with how this shuffles for, again, a laminate glossy style card stock. I don't think this deck has, or the good book has a specific reading, but let me just check. Just past, current, and where you stand now, what you aspire to, and how to get there. One card, yeah, it doesn't really have a specific spread. So I'm just going to lay this out in my large tarot spread, just so you can see it. So I start in the middle with the present situation. Definitely a lot of mental turmoil going on, but you can see how well that depicts that, which I love. Go into the past to see what we have that could help with the future. We have the beautiful, sweet, sweet, sweet King of Cups. Then going into the future with the Queen of Pentacles and sort of starting to create the environment of stability versus all of this energy going on here. I then do the four elements: fire, air, water, and earth. So we have the Four of Swords in the position of fire. Time to just stop for a minute and take a break and think. We have the King of Wands in the mind, so there's much more going on right now in the thought process than the transforming fire process. We've got to work some things out first before we also bring order and out of chaos, because we can see some mental chaos there. Love in the World card for the emotions, and then for the earth, the physical world, you know, you kind of come some full circle. And whenever we come full circle, there's going to be new ways of doing things. And then as above, we have the Knight of Wands. There is going to be a time to take action, but right now is a little bit of recentering. And then so below, we have the Page of Swords. There is that first step into this new energy, right? Because we see the 10s here. We also see the 9 here, which is all of this kind of building up mentally. And then bam, we have that sense of, hey, now it's time to go in a new direction. So they're absolutely beautiful. They fit on my table beautifully, which is important if you are a professional reader. It fits in the viewfinder well, which is important to me. And they look gorgeous. They're clear. The readings I've gotten with them have been, yes, supportive. This isn't a deck that does have lots of blood or anything like that, but it's very, I found the readings to be very clear. I think Larissa had said, I want to see how she said it because I loved it, but basically it's like sitting in a calm Japanese garden with a very blunt friend. And I think that really does sum up my experience so far with this deck. So I am actually really, I was going to move this, but I need to take a picture of it for the thumbnail. I am really, it just has slipped into my heart very quickly, is the best way that I can describe this particular deck. I'm really glad that I listened to a number of people. I know Tom Benjamin, Veronica, Miss Veronica Jude, but a number of people, a lot of people have said that I would like this particular deck. And so I can't blame just one person or thank one person. I know my friend Annika, she also was really interested to see what I would think about it. And it's just one of those decks that has slipped into my heart quite quickly with using it. And so I'm really glad to have it as part of my collection.